Okay, good morning, everyone. Um, Last time I started talking about um, languages and talking about Hebrew, and so there's something I want to say in regards to that because the reason I started talking about Hebrew was because I've had 4 semesters of Hebrew, and so it's not that I favor that culture or that language. It's just that that's my experience and that's my knowledge. I know more about Hebrew than I do the other languages. So, besides, of course, English, but then the English, the characters have been changed over the years. Originally they were Norse Germanic runes, and then they've taken different shapes as time has gone by. But my concern is with, of course, the symbolism and the original intent of the scribe, and what they were trying to convey in a spiritual sense. Because, of course, the language was used originally as a means of, all language basically was used as a means of communication, but over trade routes. You start to, once you form a set standard of communication, you can then trade goods and such as with Samaria, where the cuneiform um, was inscribed on cylinders, and they would bake the clay and have on the inside they would have uh, the quantity that they were having uh, transported to a different city, and uh, that way they could confirm. You have somebody that's shipping the goods, somebody that's taking the cattle, or whatever it may be, the trade goods. They're taking it to a certain destination, and inside those clay cooked cylinders was writing that's going to tell. So they have to break open the clay, and they tell, well, okay, I've received what I should have, and this is this guy's signature, and there was certain things that they had predetermined. Anyways, language was used as a means of trade, a way to check your trade, to communicate with your neighbor, and of course, once a priestly caste would have come up with a way of writing, then it standardizes, and it doesn't. Um, other people no longer have to come up with their own language from scratch, their own symbols from scratch, and they start borrowing from that mother language. And there's only so many mother languages in the world that have been written down. Um, and anyways, it's interesting, but my concern is more with the symbolical meaning. Starting from drawing pictures to uh, coming into a standardized form that is more easily written down than all the time it would take to scribe out like the hieroglyphics of Egypt or so forth. So, anyways, but what I'm there's something that I want to say about, I was raised Seventh Day Adventist, and you know, all my relatives are Seventh Day Adventist, and it's made a big impression on me. The standard is in Seventh Day Adventists believe that there's no soul separate from the body that will be resurrected with our body, with our soul, you know, translated, transmutated, um, and brought up into heaven. Well, but my experience has been that I do have a soul separate from my body. Uh, because when I was 17, I meditated for 3 months on White Oak Mountain at my parents' place. I lived on a farm, and and I was unemployed at the time, and I was just meditating all day, every day, and every night. I fell asleep in meditation, and so we're talking like over 12 hours a day of meditation and ritual. You get tired of meditation, it's draining you or whatever, just the amount of concentration. Then go to ritual and prayer, and then return to meditation. And at the end of that 3 month stint, I was laying in bed, and I heard a voice. Well, first, I woke up in a lucid dream. That is, when I say lucid, I mean I was conscious of my body, conscious of myself being in the room, and yet I hadn't opened my eyes. I had a vision of uh, light coming over White Oak Mountain and kind of dividing the mountain, and and I heard the song "Joy to the World." Of course, I was raised Christian, so uh, and that made obviously a big impression on me. It has made throughout my life. So, anyways, and then I heard a voice ring throughout my head that said, "Relax." And then light started filling my body, from my feet moving up to my head. And in that light, it was the perfect, I describe it, I have to say it was just the perfect temperature. It's cool. It's it's beautiful. There's love there that no words can adequately describe. I was being filled with light and love, the pure white light, and it's moving up through my body. Well, it reached to my neck, and I had the thought, I recognized myself before I was born. This is my natural state. I knew that was my natural state, that my soul was eternal, because I'd never experienced that before. So I recognized myself before I was ever born. That, I was having a deja vu experience of being filled with this light and love, but yet I've never experienced that in my life. So the immediate conclusion is that, oh, well, I have an eternal soul. That this ego that I am speaking to you now is not my true self. It's just the ego shell that I've taken on in this life, and the experiences that I've had have formed it. And the people that I've been around, and the impressions they've made on me, of course, were a blend of the soul and the ego. But anyways, uh, that's just the natural, deductive, simple reasoning. My experience was that I recognized myself before I was ever born. A state of being uh, that I'd never experienced in my life. So, how could I have a deja vu experience? How could that be happening? It's not possible. So, I have a soul beyond my body. So, and the natural conclusion is that then there's reincarnation. That I've been incarnated from a soul. My soul's just living in my body. And so, so that made a hell of an impression on me, of course, and then it's just a matter of explaining it, coming to terms with how that could be, and explaining it on a larger scale. You know, um, so after 17, then I started to question everything that I had been taught, and I started to learn Hebrew and uh, think, well, you know, if everyone's being deceived, they don't know about their soul. There's a whole body of people that have no idea that their soul actually exists. They lived for, or they live just for their physical life, just for the physical things around them. And this love and this light that I'd experienced, they know nothing of. They know nothing of their true selves. They know nothing of love and light, true love, divine love, their true eternal selves. Well, then it's impressed on me that I need to do something about this if I can, because I want other people to be able to experience this just like I have. You know, when you love, you want to give, you want to share. I've experienced this, you know, been gifted with the experience. Well, I need to help other people to experience that too. I want them to be happy. I want them to be fulfilled. I want them to, you know, experience this amazing thing that happened to me. But I've lost track of where I was here. The light was filling my body and came up to my neck. Well, it was a totally new experience to me, and I was losing all that I'd known in this life to be me, my ego. I was losing. It was a rebirth experience, so that me, Justin, all that I know about myself was being annihilated for a new experience. And yet, that new experience carried with it the recognition of my true self. But I had been taught since I was a child that spirituality and this mysticism and magical practices, all these things are of the devil. So I started to think, well, maybe I had this thought when the light was at my neck. I said, maybe what happens when I lose myself? What happens when I surrender who I am to this beautiful light and love, but potentially this deception? What happens? Do I become possessed? Is that just a way of taking control of my being? And so I was scared, you know, and so I was dying to myself, my ego, and experiencing my true self, my eternal self. But I was scared. My conscious mind was scared. My ego was scared to lose itself. And so I had been taught that that might be the devil deceiving me. And so I shook it off. I shook off that light. You know, I was already conscious, awake, you know, lucid dreaming, lucid experience. I was experiencing it in a lucid way, but I was completely still at the time. Well, to resist it, I made myself wake up, and I started shaking my head and shaking my body, and you know, and I said, fuck you, you know, I'm not going to be taken possession of. And then as the energy dissipated, as that light dissipated, you know, I felt that it was true, and tears just started flowing. I knew I had done the wrong thing.